Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's Belinda here from Visualized NZ. I have been participating in the 100-day project, and as part of the 100-day project I've been experimenting with glossy labels. Now the backstory as to why I have got glossy labels is I was hunting for A4 sheets of printable labels, and I wanted them to be cheap because I haven't got a lot of money. So I found these labels as not an A4 sheet. The sheet is actually slightly smaller than A4, but it's individual labels. So there's 2, 4, 6, 12 labels per sheet. And I got them home and I thought, cool, I'll just use individual labels rather than a full sheet. Opened them up, and I hadn't even thought about it when I bought them that they wouldn't be matte. I just didn't even occur to me, and they're not matte at all. They are glossy. So I'm sorry I can't tell you the brand or anything because I tore off the brand and got rid of it. So these are just cheap labels from the local $2 type shop, you know, where they sell all the cheap stuff, all the stuff that's imported from China. And can you see that? See how glossy? I don't know if you can see how glossy they are. They are super shiny, and I was really disappointed and thought they're not going to work because they will not work in my printer. The ink would just completely smear off them. I know that because I've tried it before with other glossy labels. You know, just got to test these things out, don't you? So I got a pack of 10 of these for $2.50. So not a huge expense. So while I was disappointed because they weren't going to perform the function, it wasn't like I'd wasted a lot of money, but I just shoved them on the shelf behind me and left them there for a good few months because I just didn't know what to do with them really because they're shiny and I did not want shiny. So as part of the 100-day project, I started experimenting. So let me take you on a wee journey. Before we get into actually doing something, I'll take you on a wee journey of my experimentation. So I had used a few labels off the sheet. I have no idea what for now, but I had these 8 labels left, and so I grabbed a few of my Ranger Archival inks and just took the lid off and smooshed it around, and then I took a wet wipe and I rubbed and rubbed and rubbed. Oh, and now that is weird. I could not get it to move. When I first did this, I could not get the ink to move, and now I'm actually rubbing it off. So I'm going to stop that because I don't want to rub it off. I want to leave it as is. I wanted it to, you know, merge and colour it rather than just be like splotchy like it is. But it didn't work. It did not work. So for what I'm going to do, I'm saying do not use Ranger Archival inks. Okay, so that's one thing that we're not going to use. So I did this and I thought, well, I can still use that in layering up for collage. That's all good, fine. So that's experiment 1. Experiment 2, I tried with distress inks, you know, because distress inks made to be reactive with water. So I grabbed a couple of distress inks. Now from memory I used the pink and the blue, and you can just very faintly, you probably can't pick it up. I think I used green actually as well. I think I used 3 colors. You probably can't pick it up on camera, the color that's in the background, but it turned out so light, and again I was disappointed, but I thought okay, well, I'll stamp over top. So I took my Ranger Archival ink in coffee and I stamped all over it with the coffee, and it's set perfectly. It's not rubbing off on my fingers, and I really like that effect. So totally doable. I am going to show you how to do the distress ink because there is a trick to it. Just rubbing it on doesn't quite work the way that you want. So that was experiment 2 and 3. So 1 was the distress ink, and then 3 was the stamping on top of it. This was the next experiment, and for this one I just used the yellow distress ink, And I noticed something from the last experiment. I noticed that it did something to the labels. It took away the shine. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. And I thought, I wonder if I can print on that. So once it was dry and flat, because they do curl up, I took it to my printer and printed out this lace image that I had. And let me tell you, it totally works. I was so excited. Like it's not smearing, it's not rubbing off. It's just absolutely wonderful. It works a treat. So I didn't stop there. This morning I thought I'd go one step further. Well, actually no, not quite. Hang on a moment. I'm missing a page. Where is it gone? No, what have I done with it? Oh, that's a shame. Oh, maybe I left it in the office. Oh well. Never mind. I'll talk about it anyway. So, after this experiment, I thought I'd try something else, and I did acrylic paint on the labels. So I used acrylic paint and smeared it all out, let it dry, flattened it out. Then this morning I ran it through my printer to see whether it would work the same way as what the distress ink does. I was hopeful because it did dull the paper down, like it was no longer glossy. It did have more of a matte finish. But I have to say I was disappointed. This is a sheet of paper that I just lay over top, and it, like, because I could see the ink was still wet, so I smoothed it over and it lifted up all this ink off of here, and even now I can still rub it up. So it's okay. Like if you don't rub it, it actually will be okay. But it didn't work how I wanted, not like the distress ink with the printing did. So this is an option if you don't have distress inks, but just bear in mind that it will transfer some ink. So using a sheet of paper to rub all over it to lift up the excess ink, and then letting it dry some more, and then just giving it a check. And I used a different lacy pattern for this one. It has improved, it has dried some, but still just did not work quite as well as what I hoped. But I will still use that. I will totally still use that. So let's get ready. I do have one more experiment that I want to do. So first I'm going to show you with the distress ink what I did, and then we will try our final experiment, well, final for now, on whether another type of ink will work. Just going to have a wee sip of my tea, and let's get into it. So for this, glossy labels. Now I don't know anything about these apart from that they're glossy. I suspect they are not plastic coated, so if you're using plastic coated labels, this may not work. You'll have to experiment. I've only used this one type of label, so I can't say it's going to work on all glossy labels. I can't say that it will run through your printer if your printer's different to mine, if your settings are different. I'll tell you what settings I have used though to create this, and I did use the same setting to do this one as well. So it worked on this one but not so well on this one, so I definitely think it's the surface underneath that's the key thing. So I can't guarantee this will work for you because of whatever you're using. All I can say is experiment, have a play. If you've got some glossy labels that you don't know what else to do with, then what are you losing? Have a play, see if it works. Okay, so what colour might we like to go with? I might go with aged mahogany. So I take the ink pad, I smooth, just run some over, and then take a spray bottle and spray. Oops. And then a cloth of some description. I used a dry wet wipe when I did this previously. I'm using a wet wipe at the moment, and that's not smudging like it did for me previously, but I don't think it will matter. And so do it in patches. Don't go ahead and do the whole thing and then go back, because you'll lose the ability to smush it out. And this is not wanting to smush out, so we're off to a great start. But it's not going to matter, because the object is not to get consistent colour. We want interest, we want texture, we want background colour, and ultimately the purpose of this is to get something we can print on with our printers. So it is spreading out some of that ink. It's just not making it's not softening the edges of this stamp pad. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't totally saturate it with the water. You just want a couple of spritzes, and you want to make sure it covers every part of your labels. I meant to do one of these ahead so you had a finished one that was not printed on to see, but I wasn't organised and I did not do that. So we're getting very squarey sort of look here, and that's okay. Might have been better with the dry cloth rather than the wet one. Oops, I see a patch of mist down the bottom here. Whoops, just hit the camera with my head. I hope I didn't give you a shake. Just really getting into it here. And let's try a little bit of blue, why not? And since this wet wipe is wet, let's just try and rub it in. So yes, definitely giving a more subtle effect, the blue. Oh, that's pretty. Actually, I like that. Something is rattling on my desk. Hopefully that is not annoying you. I haven't been able to track down what is rattling. I must have changed something around because it never used to rattle. Yeah, so we've just given it a little bit more interest, and I might go in with some yellow as well, just because I'm feeling like being colourful. Just building up the colour. But you can just do one layer. Like one layer is fine. That's all you need. I'm just, because I've already done a few sheets, I'm just sort of stretching and getting a bit more creative. Let's give it another spritz in that corner. It's looking a little. And what you're looking to do is cover the whole thing so it kind of looks a bit dull. And I'll grab out a fresh one so you can kind of see what I mean. Oops, there's a little bit down the bottom here I haven't got. Okay, so let me grab out a fresh sheet so you can see the difference. Beside the colour, look past the colour. I might as well grab out a couple of sheets since we're going to do another experiment. doesn't leave me many sheets left now, which is great. It's good to use them. So can you see the difference in the shine? Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. Now this is wet, okay? It does need to dry. It should not be sopping, like it shouldn't be so wet. Don't give it so much water that it's like literally dripping, because you'll find your labels potentially could peel up off the backing paper, and then they're pretty much useless for printing on, although you can still glue them or stick them on to things. And I've got ink all over my desk there, all over my mat. Oh gosh, look, such a messy pup. Let me just clean that up. I'll probably end up with more, but brand new pack. I'm probably going to need more of those anyway, just because I don't want to get ink transferred to everything. Right, I think maybe it's these cups that are rattling, because I've only recently put those in there, water cups for when I do watercolouring. And no, something else is still rattling. I don't know. Oh, gross, that's so filthy. It's because the cats come and sit on top of my mat. It gets so dirty. Right, yeah. Okay, so this now needs to dry. As it dries, it's going to start curling up, either down or up. Once it's dry, so once it's completely dry, you need to flatten it out. You cannot send it through your printer with any sort of curl to it, because it's going to jam your printer, and the stickers could peel up. If there's a bend in it where the sticker edges, then it could peel up and end up stuck inside your printer. Nobody wants that sort of nonsense. So once it's dry, so you need to air dry it. Once it's dry, then flatten it out. And all I do is I sit it under my cutting mat here for a couple of days. And after a couple of days, it comes out perfectly flat like this one. So that one spent a couple of days under my, or maybe a week before I got round to printing it actually, but a couple of days is good. So you need to prepare ahead for this. So, you know, under a stack of books, under your craft mat, wherever, anything that will keep it flat before you send it through the printer. So I'm going to set that one aside to dry, and I'm going to move these away. Now I'm curious to use Stampin' Up ink pads. I want to know whether they do the same thing. They may not. They may act more like the Ranger ones. I don't know. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So what colours? I grabbed out greens and yellows, because I thought that might be a nice, you know, sort of thinking nature would go with anything really. So I might start with this lemon twist. And I'm going to do the same base thing. Just wondering, because it's quite a big area to dab, isn't it? Do I want a sponge? No, what I might do is I might take my wet wipe, the one that I cleaned up the ink from my mat with, and I might use that because it's quite wet, to dab it on the ink pad and rub it on. And then looks like I don't even need to spritz it with the bottle. Well, this is cool. We don't need to spritz it. That's kind of makes it even more convenient. I mean, you could probably do this way with the distress ink as well, but it's not the way I did it, so I wanted to show you the way I did my first one. So I don't know whether this ink is going to do the same thing to the paper with to the labels by dulling them down. but we will see. Okay, so I'm going to add some layering here. Let's go with some, so that one was lemon lime twist, and I believe these are all expired colours anyway, but I'll tell you just in case. This one is Dijon, Delightful Dijon, I think it's called. Smushing it around. Okay, and let's give it a hit of something else. Let's go Gumball Green. Just switching out my area of my wet wipes so I don't contaminate the stamp pads. Really like this green, it's very pretty. So I won't be able to print on this one for a while to see whether it successfully works like our Distress ink does. But when I do print it, I will give an update as to whether it was successful or not. I do like the look of it though, so even if it doesn't work for printing, I think it gives really nice collage fodder. So my printer is an Epson EcoTank. It's just a cheap one, it's not a dear one. It's, I don't know, $300 or something, New Zealand. We've had it for 3 or 4 years, I guess. So it's not top of the line one. And when I run these through the printer, I set it to Epson Semigloss paper. Now that's not what I'm printing on, but I thought that might give me a good enough result because it's not super glossy, but it's not the same as regular paper either, so I thought that would be a good option, and it seems to work for me. So that's the setting I use to print on these. It takes a little bit longer, prints a little bit slower. Right, really liking that, but I'm feeling I want just a little bit darker patches, so I'm going to go in with Wild Wasabi and just try and be very gentle with this one because it's quite a bit darker, and just give some sort of texture here and there. Sort of reminds me of a meadow, a summer meadow. Right, I'm going to call that good. So we've got a lovely mix of greens and the Dijon. And it does appear to be very similar in terms of the dullness, but you'll only really tell once it's dry. So super exciting. If that works, I'll be very happy because that gives me a bigger color range that I can work with as well for doing more of these. So I'll put all the details in the description box so that you can find them. So what printer I use, the settings I use on my printer, and the inks that I've used. Yeah, to turn out something like this shiny beast, which is pretty much useless in what I do, to this piece of beauty that gives us bits we can stick on our ephemera, that we can decorate up journals with, that we can use to decorate envelopes, using collage as texture, layer it up. I mean, the uses are endless. It's just fabulous. I'm super happy, and hopefully these two will end up with, I'll put a different pattern on, but end up being just as beautiful and useful as this one is. So there we have it, guys. I hope you enjoy this. I would love if you give it a go and let me know how you get on. Are you successful with it? What sort of labels you've used? Are they plastic coated? Yeah, I'm a bit doubtful that plastic coated ones will work with this technique, but give it a go. And if you don't know whether plastic coated or not, just try it out and see. I'm finding this super helpful, and I hope you do too. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's been great seeing you, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye.